I remember my auntie when I was in Glasgow, she used to pray in front of the door so I wouldn't go out, because I used to just be away. And she was praying and I went outside, I slipped and I fell and I cut my cheek. Had 14 stitches in my cheek. She's praying Salah and I'm coming in with a split cheek.
Welcome to another episode of the I Love Monday podcast. Today we have Saadat Khan, the founder of Moduliv and My First House. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
This is your first media appearance, right?
It is.
Excited?
Very.
Nervous?
Not really.
Saadat is a northerner, so whenever we go somewhere, he just says hello to literally anyone. I'm like, what are you doing? But works out well. Tell us just briefly about Moduliv and My First House.
Bismillah. It's the culmination of 20 years effort, My First House. Moduliv came about after my experiences in the UK Islamic finance sector and trying to develop and deliver accommodation for purpose-built student accommodation. And it was a byproduct of that in 2014. Many years of effort, development of a system, of a product that we own, alhamdulillah. So
tell us, or take us back to your journey when you were younger. How were you as a child growing up did you grow up in Preston?
No, I grew up in Glasgow.
Okay.
So I come from a mixed race background. My forefathers are Yusuf Zay Batan, alhamdulillah, and my mother, she's from Scotland, alhamdulillah. So my mother, she accepted Islam before we were born. I have 2 sisters, alhamdulillah. And when I was 2 months old, my father, he gave me to my auntie for my tarbiyah, because she was the pious lady of the family, and my mother, she was relatively new to Islam at the time, and my father wanted me to have the foundation and the upbringing that one would want for a son, especially in, historically it was always the son that kind of got precedence in the family over the girls, which I'm pleased to see is no longer the case. And so I was brought up in Glasgow. So I was 2 months old, and then brought up with the utmost care and love and attention, and taught and given the foundation of deen and manners. And then my uncle, rahimahullah, he died when I was 7 years old. And then I came back to my family, to my mum and dad.
Did your aunt live in Glasgow as well?
Yes, so my auntie and uncle, they both lived in Glasgow. My parents, they lived in Nelson in Lancashire.
Okay, I think my mum was born in Darwin. So
Darwin, it's not far. Darwin, Blackburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how often did you visit your parents when you were living with your aunt?
Not very often. There was communication, telephone communication, but I didn't really see my parents that much. Occasionally, the odd time now and again during the year, but they were in constant communication with each other.
And then how were you as a teenager growing up?
A bit of a handful, yeah. My energy was, when I came back home when I was 7 years old, it was a bit of a shock to my sisters, because my younger sister was my mother's favourite and my elder sister was my father's favourite, and then I was, at the time, I didn't know, but I have recently been diagnosed with ADHD, which was from childhood, so I was hyperactive. So I had a difficult childhood. At the time, it wasn't understood in terms of why I was the way I was, because people didn't really get it back then. It's like 45 years ago. So there were some challenges. My hyperactivity was deemed as naughtiness or bad behaviour, and my auntie and uncle, they were so gentle and loving and caring with me. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them. And my father, he was brought up with a tough background, so there was no talking, there was just hitting. So that's what I remember in terms of my kind of guidance when I came back. So it was something new for me, I was smothered with love, not with sandals. So, subhanAllah. I channeled my energy into cricket. Alhamdulillah, I played at a good level. I was in the first team at 13 years old. I played in the Lancashire League. Alhamdulillah. I come from a nice family. My forefathers, my grandfather, rahimullah, he's, alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. He was a nice man. And through what he did in Pakistan, he worked in the political sphere, alhamdulillah. And so we met the cricket team, so Pakistan cricket team, Javed, me and Dad and Imran Khan, they used to come and stay with us, subhanAllah. And subsequently, when my father was born in India, so he had good relationships, he was a businessman. And then the likes of Kapil Dev and Mohinder Ramanath, they were staying with us when they went to win the World Cup against the West Indies. They left from our house, and our families are still friends with their family as well. So alhamdulillah, so that background in terms of growing up, alhamdulillah, I had a nice kind of upbringing. So my behaviour was an issue because of this undiagnosed, and at the time pretty much unrecognised condition.
Give us an example of how you are hyperactive, and like how is it different to like a normal person without the ADHD?
I used to know that I'm doing things wrong. I remember at the time, I used to know that this is not right, but I still used to do it. It's just no fear, just, I remember my auntie when I was in Glasgow, she used to pray in front of the door so I wouldn't go out, because I used to just be away. And she was praying and I went outside, I slipped and I fell and I cut my cheek. I've got 14 stitches in my cheek. She's praying Salah now, coming in with a split cheek. So these kind of things, that's just one example.
So then, did you go university?
No.
What was your path to work?
So I left home when I was 16. My dad is in business, and he was from the background and the understanding that hit your foot on the floor and water shall come, you're a man. That's the way he was brought up. So that was a similar kind of thinking that he had with me as well, for me to kind of find my own way, if you would. I was disruptive in school. My attention span was almost zero. I was just interested in sport, and really nothing much more than that. So I left school with one GCSE. They made me Macbeth in English literature just because I had to concentrate and I couldn't disrupt the class. So I got an A in that. So I'm happy.
That's good.
That's good.
No other GCSEs?
Well, I know I got 5, but only just, So yeah, not me. I didn't revise.
And then what was your first job?
So I left home, and then my first job, I worked in McDonald's. Was my first job. Alhamdulillah. So I left home. I was living in a bedsit, still in Nelson, and because of my bad behaviour, and at night time I used to jump out of the window and make the bed. So when Mum used to look in the bedroom, she looks like I'm sleeping because there's pillows in the bed. She doesn't know that I've jumped out the window, And then when she found out, my father was in Pakistan at the time. She says, I'm going to have to tell your dad when he comes back, and if I do, he will kill you, not literally, but, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I left. Mum gave me the money. She goes, look, you should stay on your own. It's obviously, there's going to be some issues. So I lived in Nelson, in a bedsit in Nelson. And then I got a job at McDonald's. I enrolled in college to do leisure studies, because I thought it'll be fun, leisure studies. That sounds like my kind of thing. But it was travelling tourism, so I didn't last very long.
How did you feel when your mum told you, okay, it's time to leave?
SubhanAllah, our parents, hindsight, I'm 51 now, alhamdulillah. At the time, it made sense to me what she was saying. But with hindsight, she did what she felt was best, like any mother would for me. She has of course, an obligation to my father, but she also, because when my dad used to beat me, he used to beat me. That's probably why, I am the way that I am today in terms of that side of things. It doesn't really bother me because I had it beaten out of me when I was younger. So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on my parents, rahmatullahi da'i, rabbi rahmahuma kama rabbayani saghira, on my father, because also he also did me big favors. So I have nothing but love and respect for whatever they did and however they did at the time. They did what according to the best of their capabilities, you know. So,
What was your next step after McDonald's?
so what happened after McDonald's? I had a number of jobs, you know. I didn't really last very long in jobs because of, you know, my condition, you know. I call it my crazy nature, you know. Just from here to there, I don't blah 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 blah, from one thing and to another. And then I worked in a factory. I remember working in a factory and then, you know, messing around in the factory and the foreman chasing me off the grounds, you know, saying how he wants to if I get hold of you, you know. So then I worked in somewhere else, putting headboards together. Subhanallah, I used to deliver flowers, you know, to when Lockerbie happened, Lockerbie tragedy. When it happened, I was working for a company called Fresh Flowers Northern. And we used to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, then go to Smithfield Market. I thought I was in Manchester then. I forgot I'm in London.
Spitalfields.
It's just up the road. Smithfield's here, yeah. Yeah, I think there's one in Manchester as well, I think it's called. And then subhanAllah, we used to pick flowers and then we used to take them to Scotland, you know, and then we used to come back 6 o'clock at night and then same again, 1 o'clock in the morning. So yeah. So that was one job. I did it for a week. Yeah.
Just a week. Did you get fired from another job?
I broke the wing mirror when I was driving this truck. They'd let me drive. I had the license, you know, and I hit the wing mirror, and my wages were £75, and they charged me £70 for the wing mirror. So it's not a wise career move.
What were your like career goals during them years? Did you have any?
Career goals. I remember my dad asking me, rahmallah, he used to say to me all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? Wallahi, even subhanallah, I would say that I actually realized this, what my father used to say to me when I started doing the work of the property side of things in terms of my you know, my life. I had no idea. I just wanted to play cricket. I wanted to go out, you know, subhanallah.
So when was it that you started realizing that you had to do something for yourself?
You know, there's a big gap in between that from school and otherwise to that, you know. So when I left home at 16 years old, I got in with the wrong company. You know, the people who I was associating with were not very nice people. I was in Nelson at the time, and I did some petty crimes with them. They used to get credit cards, and then we used to use credit cards that didn't belong to us. They belonged to somebody else. And then that got discovered by the police. My dad used to work for the police. He was an interpreter for the police, so he used to deal with all of the cases from the Asian side. So they called my dad, and they said, look, this has happened. So even though I wasn't living at home, they knew who my dad was, you know, because it was a local police. And that kind of spiraled as time got on with the people who I was associating with, along with the fact that I couldn't really hold a job and you still need money, and so these kind of things had an impact on my decision-making process. And with my condition, I was just like, yeah, let's just go with it, you know. So that particular time, from leaving school to this particular part of my life, I would say up until the age of 26, you know, I lived this life where I was removed from my foundation, you know, which my auntie had given to me. You know, I was very, I dare say, westernized in my ways, you know, not praying, you know, and everything else associated with that way of life that I'm not proud of, but it's just part of the learning, you know, and I believe has made me the person that I am today.
And then your first idea, what was it?
So there's a bit missing after that 26-year-old is when I went to prison.
This took a turn for the worse.
As a byproduct of all of those years of behaving in a certain way. So that culminated in me ended up going to prison when I was 26 years old. And so I was inside for a year because following on from what I'd done, I bought something and I knew that I shouldn't buy it, but I bought it. It was a car, and knowing that it wasn't, it wasn't legitimate. And then when I got caught with the car, I wouldn't tell the police where I got it from because I didn't want the ramifications of the people who supplied this. So I said, I just took the rap for it. Yes, I know. So yeah, I was in Her Majesty's pleasure for a year.
Did that change you in any way?
That's
Or was
the,
that like the life
that's the
changer?
catalyst, That's kind of when you have your freedoms taken away from you, then you truly realise in terms of the impact and the places where they sent me. They sent me to Fazakerley, they sent me to Walton, which is arguably the worst prison in Europe. Well, not when you look at the one. Is it Wandsworth down here? I'm not sure which one it is. There's a really hard one down here. Belmarsh, that's the one. And then sending me to open prison and then to closed prison. So I was moved around a lot during that particular time. But subhanAllah, while I was inside, I was leading the Friday prayers. SubhanAllah, and look at how from when I'm outside to when I'm inside. And those days, I reflect upon them with gratitude, as stupid as that might sound, because only Allah knows where I would be today if I wouldn't have learnt the lesson. It was really an amazing wake-up call for me at that stage in my life. So.
Did you feel you reconnected with your faith in prison?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When you have nothing, where do you go when you're in times of trouble? You go back to the source, like the ship on the water, and then you say help, and then when you reach the dock, you forget. No, alhamdulillah, I didn't forget. Alhamdulillah, it was. And la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It's all from Allah.
How are your parents during that 1 year?
Well, I was away from home. I left home when I'm 16. They only came to know about it, So my mum, she came to see me once, with my sister. But other than that, my father, he never came. So.
Does that play on your mind a lot that it didn't come, or did
No. Alhamdulillah. Look, as I said, I've got nothing but love and respect, because they're my parents. However they did and whatever they did and whenever they did the best according to their capability and to their understanding, So I don't have anything but love and respect for them.
And then when you came out of prison, what was the first thing you did?
I think, if I remember correctly, I was jumping up and down going, yes! I remember my life's belongings in they give you a plastic bag, a see-through plastic bag. Everything is in the plastic bag. And I'm going, yes, yes. That's what I can remember. That's the first thing I did.
And then what was your thought process, and what were you thinking of doing next?
Well, they put me. I was one of the first people on the tag, so they put me on a tag. So I came out 2 months early. Then I stayed with my sister. They put you on curfew system, And at that particular time, to be frank, I can't really remember. All I remember is being within this environment and being quite difficult. I didn't really get on with my sister because we didn't have a relationship. I never had a relationship with my sisters, and then I had to find somewhere else to live where they could come and put this system in where I'm on curfew. So I remember it was I was out of prison. I knew that, and that was good. Other than that, I didn't really have any more thoughts about it. But what I did realise from being in prison is I didn't want to be on my own anymore, and that's when I started to think about getting married. I want to be married. I want to be, but I had nothing. I was living in a rented property, with a blanket and a pillow, in an unfurnished house that's half finished because I knew the landlord, and he said you can stay here, So I did ask my dad about that though. I said, Abu, I want to get married, and my father, he said, oh yeah, they have some advertisement in Jang newspaper. You will find somebody there.
Did you feel ready?
Did I feel?
Did you feel ready to get married, or was it?
The way that my mind works, sometimes I don't even know ready or not ready. Right? I just get a thought in my mind, and what I did know is that I didn't want to lead a life outside of what I'd been doing in terms of while I was inside. I wanted to follow the way that my faith asks me to, commands me to, not even to. This is what you should do, and this is how you should do it. So. but my connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had grown, you know. So having tawakkul and belief and wanting to do things in a certain way, yeah. So you start putting more faith, you know. So I had my faith, and I wanted to put my faith in doing the right thing.
And then when did you finally get married? How
So
long did
I was
that
28.
take? You
So,
came out?
yeah, no, so yeah, there or thereabouts. So not long after I came out, it's an interesting story. I met the mother of my children. We're no longer together. We're divorced now, but alhamdulillah, we have a very nice relationship and 3 beautiful children together, alhamdulillah. And I was in Manchester, and she was in Manchester. She used to be best friends with my sister, and I bumped into her in Manchester, and. So I remember you. She said, I remember you. So we exchanged phone numbers and we got talking, and then she said, you know, I'd marry you tomorrow. She said, I said, I'd marry you. She said, shall we get married? I said, yeah, let's get married. I went to see her mum, alhamdulillah, who knew me from school. She was like, not so sure because I was a troublemaker at school. And alhamdulillah, so that was May 20th or 21st. And September the 29th, alhamdulillah, we were married. We made nikah, alhamdulillah. There's her mum, my mum, Imam, my sister's husband, and my sister had cooked food. So we made the nikah, and we got the keys for the apartment on that day. We made nikah that day in the apartment, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, made nikah, alhamdulillah.
So what were you doing in terms of work? Or how are you going to provide for...
Again, that's a great question, you know. When I proposed to my wife, I had 4 pence in my bank. I had nothing.
Not much.
I had 4p in a building society book, I remember, subhanAllah. And she knew, of course, you know, alhamdulillah, in terms of what my situation was. So I'd applied for a job working at Pitney Bowes, which is an American company, like you know, they do document management and all of that kind of stuff. And I'd got through the first interview, and I was to get to the second interview. But my wife-to-be, she was in Mallorca. She said, "Oh, come and see me there." So I didn't have the money, so she got the money from her mum to pay for my ticket for me to go to Mallorca. So I went and met her there. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, you've missed the second interview now. There's no job for you." I thought, "Okay, oh well, no job, no job. I'm getting married." So when I came back after this trip, the person who was supposed to come, they didn't come for interview. So alhamdulillah, so I went for the interview, alhamdulillah, and I got the job. So there was a training course that I had to go down to London for, and I didn't even have the money to get to the course, you know. And I had a friend of mine who's a window cleaner, Scott, bless him. I said, "Scotty, I need some money, you know, I need to get to this. I've got a job, I need to go." He gave me £30 to get the coach to the course. So it was a residential course, 2.5 weeks. Alhamdulillah, completed the course. At the end of that, passed. They gave us a car and a basic salary. And that was kind of the beginning of my corporate career, if you would, you know, where I worked with Pitney Bowes, and I worked with them for about 15 months or so. Smashed all of the records with regards to sales, made significant sums of money, £10,000 a month I was earning, you know. And within the short space of time, you know, we were stable, we were set, we had our own home, it was fully furnished, you know, alhamdulillah, after marriage.
Did your hyperactiveness affect you working at Pitney Bowes?
Yeah,
How?
positively.
Or negatively?
Yeah, no, not negatively, positively, because I had a structure. You know, I knew what I wanted to do, I was driven, you know, in terms of I want to do something, I want to be the best. I want to do something, I want to achieve something. So my work ethic was like nobody else in the office. I was 196% year to date. You know, everybody else said, "Well, how did every award there was? I won every award." I got invited to the head office, and I said, "I don't want to work here anymore. I'd had enough." You know, at 15 months, I wanted to do something else. They gave me a letter, a side letter, to say, "We'll pay you more than anybody else, but you can't show them this letter." You know, I said, "But I didn't want to. My heart wasn't in it anymore." I enjoyed it while I did it. It was good. It was good fun. You know, and like I said, the money was good. I used to get bonus bonds for performing on the financial side of things. I used to get £1,500, £2,000 worth of bonus bonds. I used to just give them to Jill. I just say, "There you go, you can go shopping." It's just like
That Christmas come early.
it's exactly Eid.
So then, when did you eventually get into construction?
Property.
Or property?
Yeah. So So that was like 2014. 2004. I started the first property side of things. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, and me and Jill, she said to me, "You're not enjoying this, are you?" Anymore? I said, "No." She says, "What do you like?" She says, "I like property." I like property. Shall we do property? Yeah, let's do property. That's how we started. We were living in a rented property. I had no experience. I had nothing, but I just knew I liked property. So
What did you like about it?
I just like the idea of it, because I didn't know much about it, I just like the idea of property. It sounds, I like it. So we set up this company, Comfortable Living, and somebody had told me that if you get planning permission on land, you'll make a lot of money. I thought, that sounds good. Let's do that. So I had a friend of mine who's an architectural technician, and he helped me guide me in the initial stages to find sites and to take them through planning permission and look for them in the UDP, blah, 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 blah. I did that for 18 months. I'd saved up some money. I had about £100,000 from my Pitney Bowes career, of my career, my short, the time that I was there, something like that. And I got 2 sites, options, eight owners on one site, 3 owners on a different site, got the option agreements, but I didn't get planning. Spent all my money. Like literally, I was just like, we're going to run out of money and we haven't got planning permission yet, But it sounded good, so I did it.
Did you get refused planning?
It didn't get planning. It just didn't get. It got refused planning, and then it had to go to appeal with the inspectorate, and also the inspectorate. They also refused it. But in the interim, one of the owners, who we didn't identify, took a ransom strip. So it was like one thing after another, And then the other site, we didn't get planning, and then we got planning on appeal.
And then how much did you make from that?
Well, I didn't have any. That's a great question. I didn't at that stage because I didn't have planning. I got planning after, so I had to think of plan B. So plan B was I'd heard of a company called Inside Track that used to do education, property education, and we had a relative that was involved in that. So I took the idea and spoke to some agents, Savills actually in Manchester. Have you got some properties that I can buy? In bulk, because that's what they were doing, and I said yes. So there's a development called Skyline Central, so I agreed to buy 19 properties on there, reserve these for me, and I'm interested in these, and I'll find some investors. I put an advert in the newspaper. I didn't even have the money for the advert in the newspaper. It's £434.75. I've still got the check stub, check number 1 it is. And from that, I got inquiries and I got my first 2 investors, £60,000. In just under 3 years, we turned over 8.95 million, alhamdulillah, and made about £1 million profit. And that's how it started. I didn't have it, I knew I needed to do something different, and I took the idea. I didn't borrow any money from the bank. That's not the way that I operate. And alhamdulillah, so by the time that came about, and then the credit crisis happened. 2007, 2008, so that put an end to that.
So how did you make that £1 million profit? Were you just flipping the properties?
Yes. So
basically open plan and then...
So I would buy end of developments, so where they need 3-4 properties or more left on the development, and the developer wants to get out, so they've got all the costs associated with it, and I'd go and make an offer on those, and then because of what I'd done previously in terms of advertise what I'm trying to do, I had a list of people who were waiting, and then I used to just call them. So I had around 13 clients, and they used to buy everything that I used to get.
And then this was your light bulb moment in terms of this is what you want to stick out.
I was just loving it, it was just a thrill to be making money. I mean, I remember one day we bought 5 properties one day, and we sold them all. We made £200,000 in a day. It was the buzz of the win. I used to enjoy it. I still, of course, we get a thrill from that. It's not the money, it's the thrill of doing something that succeeds.
You came in the newspaper as well, wasn't it? A few times.
Yeah.
Was that during this period?
Yeah, so 2008 for doing this, buying properties at a discount. And then what I wanted to do was to sell the properties to first-time buyers, because, of course, there's a big need there. And I understood what it felt like not to have a home and otherwise. And I agreed to buy 30 properties with Taylor Wimpey. And then at a big discount, I can't remember, I think it was like 40%. It was a big number. And then I advertised them. There should be 120. I bought them for 70, and then I advertised them for 75,000 to first-time buyers. And the BBC, there was an article in the BBC News in the Northwest. They came and did the article, and the developer pulled the deal from me. They said, "No, sorry."
Why?
Because that's their most lucrative market. So, yeah. So I wasn't able to sell those homes to first-time buyers.
So did you end up selling them homes?
No, they took the deal back off me.
Oh, completely.
They wouldn't give me they didn't give me the properties.
So when I want to talk to you about the Moduliv
Mm.
and the modular build,
Mm.
because that's a very fascinating aspect. So firstly, what is modular build?
Modular housing has been around for a long time. So our modular system, there's a number of different ways of building modular, whether it's panelized or volumetric or on-site, off-site. There's a multitude of different variations of it. So our system is panelized. It's light gauge steel because I believe that's the most robust material to use in modular in terms of its tolerances, and it doesn't shrink and otherwise like wood does, and then that creates snagging. So our system is light gauge steel frame system.
And how long does it take you to build a house from scratch?
So 320 man hours to be exact. So that's 4 people working for 1 week, 40 hours a week. That's how long it should take. That's a standard 79 square meter house.
So how many weeks? 4 weeks? 5 weeks?
Yeah, so 300, 1 week to build a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, 320 man hours. You'll have 8 people working on the house. You'll be done in a week.
So why isn't there more modular builds happening if the time is so short to build a house? Because to compare it,
Yeah.
to build a house from scratch, it would take 9 months, 6 to 9 months with a normal build, normal contractors.
Yeah.
So why aren't people going more towards modular build?
I feel it's a much bigger conversation, about that, about the powers that be, about restricting supply and demand, and that allows you to keep prices at a certain level or raise them in line with the amount of properties that you're releasing. If all of a sudden I can build 20 properties in 20 weeks and I bring them all on the market, what's that going to, you're the estate agent, what's that going to do to the price?
Well, to be honest, you need the supply of properties on the market at the moment anyway.
Well, that's great. It's great, but I'm talking in terms of generally speaking, the supply and the demand. Typically, you'll have a dip in the price, right? So like the developer who's selling me on block, so they've got to reduce the price because they're all giving them to me at the same time. So modular as a solution, absolutely, I believe, has a key role to play in resolving, the supply and demand dynamic. So, and the reason why it's not happening, many people have tried it, as I did. I built the first modular home for Manchester City Council. I've had a factory. I developed the actual, from 2014 to 2017, developed the system without building anything, getting the warranties and the approvals and the NHBC certification, approval from all of the main lenders at the same rate as traditionally built homes. Because that was in line with my corporate background in terms of identifying a need and then fulfilling it, so there's no objections. So having gone through that particular process, and coming back to in terms of what you're asking, I believe there are greater powers at play that it's not in their best interest for modular to be successful in the UK. That's my kind of absolutely heartfelt and transparent answer.
That's to ensure the prices don't just crash, because obviously if they build the amount of houses they're promising, then supply goes up.
But even that's questionable. How long have they been saying it? The UK government...
They won't build it.
The UK government is not serious about housing. No government who changes over 20 housing ministers in as many years for such a key part of for the people and for the economy is serious about this topic.
I agree with that. They're not gonna... They've been promising the number of homes for so long, and we're still seeing families who are homeless in bedsits. And we're seeing it more and more, because we work with councils. So we're seeing it more and more. So many families on temporary housing. There's no permanent housing solution that the government won't take responsibility for. So if you do build, a number of houses, and they are building more in this area, but yes, that's going to affect the rental market and it's going to affect the property pricing. And if it affects the property pricing, it affects the banks. And if it affects the banks, then the country comes crashing down. That's the way I look at it.
It's definitely a knock on that's, and we're aligned on that. There's definitely something, there's a bigger picture here. If you want to, it's like anything, if you want to do it, you'll do it. We've allegedly reached the moon, but we can't build an affordable house. Really? We've got advanced manufacturing, we've got BAA systems. We're one of the leading engineering hubs globally and renowned for this. And we can't build an energy efficient, affordable home to solve a housing crisis. I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that.
You've been passionate about helping first-time buyers for a long time, isn't it?
Yes, I started in 2008 when Taylor Wimpey pulled the deal off me. Yeah.
So what have you done in that time to reach, so over the last 15 years, to then decide, okay, my first house is what I'm going to do?
It's man proposes and God disposes. Our thinking, I never planned it because I don't have the capacity, intellect to plan it the way it's happened. All I had is a sincere intention that I want to help. And my prayers and the prayers of my nearest and dearest. This is what we want to do. I believe, you asked me a question earlier, if you could describe my first house in a sentence, what would it be? And I thought about it, and a great question. And I would say, it's the purpose of my life.
Why?
Because I've been given a capability. It's something, we all have a purpose in life. The life that we live either becomes for us or against us. And with the capabilities that I've been blessed with, I believe I'm in an exceptionally fortunate position, and something I'll be questioned about. That what did I do with that? So having that, being given this amana, giving this capability, this modular solution, and however it came about now, it's about helping people to understand, people who've lost hope, people who think they're never going to own a house, that it's not as expensive and it's not out of reach that you are led to believe from what we're talking about in terms of the powers that be. It's achievable. You can have a home that you can afford to live in. You can have a home that's energy efficient. It's only going to cost you £250 a year to heat it instead of £250 a month. So you can heat and eat, whether it's one or the other.
Do you feel as if it's almost your responsibility?
Of course. I have this, alhamdulillah, I've been given the system, alhamdulillah, I own the IP and the warranties and the approvals and everything associated with it. Of course I have a responsibility.
So what is my first house? How will it help the first-time buyer looking to buy a house? How will it help them?
So because we own the system, we can build it faster and cheaper than third parties. So therefore we can sell it for less than other people, and with the speed of the build, so the actual cost associated with the money and the time side of things, it makes it, if we can't do it, nobody can do it, makes it a real solution for people, we can build the same house at the same price pretty much anywhere in the country because it's a system.
Okay, so for those that don't understand, what is the system?
It's a light gauge steel frame system which is panelised. Shall I put a plug? Can I put a plug for the website?
Yeah, we'll put it in the description.
So, watch this description. Light gauge steel frame system, quick to build, energy efficient. The quality that people can have a look on the website for a 360 video. They can walk through each room to get a look and a feel of it. Standardized floor plans. Fantastic specification. So the purpose for doing it, going back to my Pitney Bowes days, was to create a system. The white piece of paper, what I started with for my first house system, was to have a product that's as good, if not better, than a traditionally built home. Because it's an unknown entity relatively in the UK. It's been around for a long time in America and in other countries. And that's where I set about. So I developed this system, got the NHBC certification, got the main lender approval, and then after I delivered to Manchester City Council in 2018, I got Homes England grant pre-approval as long as our homes were NDSS compliant,
What's NDSS?
nationally described space standard, so quality of life. So you're not making like little boxes.
Small.
You're making things what people can live and you know, grow in, rather than just something that's a box.
So then, what does the buyer need to buy a house? Is it just a standard procedure?
Yeah. So at this stage, you know, we launched the company 3 weeks ago, and the response has been very, very encouraging, and from people who've been in the sector for a long time, in terms of saying that there's nothing else like it on the market. So in terms of the standard procedure, it's like the first thing that anybody needs to do is to understand their financial standing. You know, what is your position? Where would you like to live? So if you look on the website, there's FAQs, but on the contact page, you go through a series of questions in terms of what your budget is, if you've had your affordability calculation done, which location do you want to live in. And from that very easily, ideally you need to speak to an advisor, financial advisor. We don't advise on loans or mortgages because you know, we operate in an ethical and Sharia-based way. So we're not recommending anybody to do that. We are thinking about our own crowdfunding platform where people can come to us, and we've got the products at the end of it. I know there's other products available in the market, but they don't have the actual solution to build their homes. They're buying homes that already exist in the market. So flexibility in pricing allows us to sell the homes based on what somebody can afford to pay. We make the money on the construction. We don't need to make the money on the developer margin, because we're making the money through the manufacturing process, which gives us a unique positioning in the market. We can then give that to the end user. We give it as an interest-free loan.
Okay, so for example, a house here, a 3-bed house costs 500,000. How much would it cost the My First House buyer?
So it would be based on their affordability. So let's say, for instance, that client, so for us in terms of our build costs, for that house, a 3-bedroom house, it's 101 square metres. So that will cost us in London £250,000 to build,
Okay.
right? So it costs you 250,000, you're going to sell for 500,000. The land will be 150,000. You know better, I'm just giving you an example. So that's 400,000. We made our money on the construction side, right? So we're good. 400,000 for us, we're good. So the person can afford 400,000. Right? So they get the home at the price at what they can afford to pay. That 20% equity, that's given to them as an interest-free loan.
So the value is 500,000.
The value is
100 grand
Yeah.
is given to them as a loan,
Interest-free loan. That's it.
that
Just
they pay back over time.
if and when you're able to do so. And if you're not able to do it, then we forgive you. You know?
Because you've made your money.
We've made our money, yeah. But if you know, we have to look at people's situation. We're making money. Right. We're good. If we, the purpose of this is, from a commercial perspective, it makes sense because we own the system and we can do it. But ultimately, it's more than that. The social value associated with what we're doing, I believe, is far greater than the financial remuneration. By helping people to live within their means that they can potentially spend more time with their family instead of working an extra job because they've got to pay an extra 100 grand on a mortgage, which helps to restabilise, I believe, the social infrastructure that's missing and being increasingly eroded from society. Then the value that they can add to society is far greater than the 100 grand that we're giving them in terms of a interest-free loan. They can then help others, or think about helping others, or think about helping themselves. You know, so this is, you know, the thing that fills me with a lot of happiness. You know, so. Being able to do that, you know, we believe we're only here for a short time. And what is going to benefit us is not the numbers in the bank. We've got a greater purpose, you know. And going through the experiences that I went through in my youth and prison helped me to understand and appreciate what is my purpose. It's not because I'd done that.
Yeah.
And obviously it wasn't that, because it wouldn't lead to where I ended up. If that was my purpose, that was my awakening, that was my, this is not your purpose, you know, try something else.
What kind of social impact do you think My First House will have? Because the way I can see, the way you're speaking, you're freeing up people's time so they can utilize it in other purposes, whether that's their own self or their family or the community and the wider good.
You know, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Exactly what you're saying. When you can think, when you're not in debt to the point where you can't even breathe almost, you know, because you're being squeezed from every different angle. Our properties are energy efficient to the point where you'll save thousands just on your energy. What's the difference that you can make to yourself? The equity that, you know, we'll look at things on a case by case basis. If having that equity in that property and you want us to provide a home for you, and you say, well, I want this home and this is my affordability, but I have to sell the home because I've got debt to pay, sell the home. And you keep the equity if it helps to change your life. Oh, job done. You know, I'm happy with that. You know, and the impact that can then have. You know, this is. I've heard it say that this is a very social enterprise. No, it's an extremely profitable business model. So from the commercial perspective, but not only for this life, but also for the hereafter.
What was the reception you had when you made that launch, that post on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
What was the reception you had from?
I've had over 20,000 impressions. You know, I don't know how many comments that I've had, but I've had so many inquiries, well wishers, people from industry leaders, from the first-time buyers market saying this has never been done before. We need this. People are being squeezed with shared ownership. They can't afford it in the first place. And the challenges associated with it, Help to Buy has gone now. How are they going to afford a house? They can't get the additional 20%. So this fills the gap for all of the issues that are in the market right now. My First House removes all of those, plus some. So you don't have to pay us back if you can't afford it. Yeah. Which other system, which other solution from the housing market gives that? Discounted property, typically only reserved for the wealthy who don't need it in the first place.
Yeah. And then, what was the industry leader saying apart from the fact that they said this is something that's never been done before?
Yeah.
You also had other people in other industries happy that you've produced such a product.
Yeah, so the stakeholders from a multitude of different, in terms of the overall value chain. So whether that's people who've got land to sell, you know. The housing industry in the UK, you know better than I, is
Broken.
So, and it's not getting any better. You know, when you look at the lending and the interest rates and otherwise associated with it, you know, people have still got money to invest and they've still got money to spend. They're looking for a fair and equitable return. The returns that we can offer to people who want to work with us is far greater than anything else that's available in the market because of the speed of the build. We control the actual product. The speed of the build and the returns that we can generate are far greater than anything else that's available in the market, and it's all against real assets that are going to have a lasting social impact. This is a generational thought process in a product. It's not just for now.
So where do you see My First House in about 10 years?
This is not me saying it. People have said to me, they've said, this is the IKEA of house building. This is the Apple of house building. This is the Tesla of house building. Sharing the knowledge in order for us to scale, we have to share knowledge to a certain degree. We're not going to give away the family jewels, of course, but helping people and educating them and helping them to understand and to see there's a way of doing things that still achieve as good, if not better, result than if we were to do things traditionally.
Yep.
We have to help each other in order for us to achieve an objective. If everybody, and at the moment, the way that the social infrastructure is and the way that everybody has to pay for the house and otherwise doesn't allow you to think like that because you're too busy taking the water out of your own canoe, you know, or ship or whatever that's sinking. So it doesn't allow you to do it. So all of a sudden, the water's not coming in, or you can think in a different way. You know, so going back to what you're saying in terms of the social value, you know, we live in a fantastic country. Any country that leaves, where somebody leaves 50 million to a cat, you've got to be, you know, your hats off. These people care, you know, in terms of the indigenous population. And we as Muslims, of course, we're a small percentage of that. So My First House is for everybody, to remove them from the shackles of this increasingly unaffordable life that everybody is, you know, aspiring to or having to lead because they've got no choice. All of a sudden, if you work together and you think together, you know, in 10 years' time, where do I see it? I see individual locations and regions running their own my first house. Having people who are professional, who are planners and architects and builders and joiners and electricians, because they're also in that position that they also need something that they can afford to live in, the everyday people, you know.
So would you franchise it out?
You know, it's a good question, is that. I wouldn't franchise it out, unless there's anybody out there who wants to pay me a huge amount of money and keep me on board, you know. All offers are on the table. I don't want to sell out, right? So it's not, and the reason why I say that is because this is something for the people, right? It's got some value, of course, and we will get what's written for us. It's how we go about getting it. So ultimately, my plan for my first house is to put it into trust, and that trust then provides the knowledge, the know-how, the capability, and access to the product at all times to those people who are most in need. That's my objective with Moduliv and with my first house, that people never have to feel that they can't own their own home at a price of what they can afford to pay. We have to, you know, going back to what you were saying, you know, it's an amana. I'm only here for a short space of time. It's been given to me now, and we need to pass the baton over to somebody else.
What are some of the challenges you've had so far? 'Cause there's been a lot.
Yeah, well, like there is with anything great in life, you know, nothing happens, you know, overnight. Yes, it's been a challenge. Of course, it's been a challenge, you know, trials and tribulations and financial, and losing my own home through the process and being told so many things, and people taking this as a great idea and trying to replicate it, trying to cut me out of the picture, speaking bad about whatever the case may be. So yeah, there's a huge amount of challenges associated with it. But when your purpose and your focus is greater than yourself, you can take a lot more on the chin, so to speak. You know, if it's just about you and it's just about commercial, then of course things fall by the wayside. This is not, you know, something. It's not a passing phase. This is the purpose of my life. This is why I've decided this is something that I want to do until the end of time. Myself directly, and or working with people indirectly who are also, you know, willing to join me on the journey.
If you had a 26-year-old Saadat Khan sitting right next to you today, what are you saying to him?
Do you mean myself? Subhanallah. What a great question, you know. Subhanallah. Never give up.
Why is that so important to you?
It's just, you have to, anything worth having, you have to sacrifice for.
What did you feel you sacrificed? And what did you sacrifice?
I put everything I have into this.
Do you want to pause?
I don't. No, Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. You have to sacrifice everything. You know, you have to give it your all. If it's worth it, you know, and this is worth it. This can change the lives of so many people, you know, and make such a huge impact, not only in this country, but in other countries as well, because of course the capability and the knowledge and the product is transferable, you know, it's not just in one place. And to be able to be a part of that, I am not here because of me, you know, subhanallah. I am here because of the people who've helped me. I'm just a part of it. I'm a small part of it. You know, with limited capability, with limited education, with limited background, with limited credibility. I have a huge list of people to thank who've helped me and supported me and believed in me, you know, over the years, and continue to do so to this day, you know, who believe that this is the right thing to do. So you have to sacrifice. History tells us that. Without sacrifice, whether it's sacrificing where you live, whether it's sacrificing what you have to sacrifice something in order for you to achieve something that's great. And I feel blessed to have been given the strength, the opportunity and the strength to go through that.
You've had some difficult times with your health, you've said as well.
Yeah.
What's given you the kind of strength to push back up?
It's that purpose, you know. It's not something to give up on. This is the purpose. Why I'm doing what I'm doing, you know. And as things are going along, and then it was Moduliv, and then it's now my first house, things are becoming easier and easier as time goes on, and you learn and you make mistakes and things get refined to the point now. Sorry, what's the question again? Just tell me again.
What gives you the
strength
to get back up?
I have a beautiful family, you know, and amazing friends, and who love me and care for me and support me unquestionably. They believe in what I'm doing to be the right thing because they're on the journey with me, you know. What is the purpose? Why have we been created? And what is it that we're going to take with us? So I'm exceptionally fortunate, you know, that I have a loving family and an amazing support network, professionally and personally, that allows me and has allowed me and continues to allow me to follow this dream and this passion that I have.
When do you think my first house would really kick on? And when do you think you're going to have the attention of a lot of bigger players in the game, such as the Taylor Wimpeys and them kind of developers?
The larger players could do this in the blink of an eye if they wanted to, you know, because they've got huge amounts of money, they've got knowledge and everything associated with it. They understand the industry, they understand politics, but they understand if they want to do it, they can do it, you know. In terms of my first house taking off, we're going through a journey and through a cycle. We're in our infancy, you know. We've got a great product. We need to deliver some homes first. We've delivered a couple of small projects, nothing, you know, that's going to shout out to anybody, but the product is right. The warranties and the approvals is right, the mortgageability is right, the price is right, everything associated with it is right. So the next stage of our development is for us to build a few more homes so people can come and they can have a look and a feel, and you know, everybody wants to do touchy-feely, and that's absolutely fine. So for us, after 3 weeks, the plan is for us to start building some homes, ideally before the end of this year. And then by the end of 2024, I want to have built at least 100 homes for my first house. That is the plan.
Do you not feel that you're going to have, because you're selling the houses at less than market value, you're going to have people or companies coming to approach you, either trying to buy you out so you don't affect the market, especially if you're making 100 homes in a specific area, or they're going to try and deter you from going further?
There's always people who are looking for opportunity to close down and to continue with their mafiosa type, you know, business or approach. That's, you know, that's the commercial world. You know, they buy you up to shut you up, and we're not for sale. You know, and going back to what I was saying in terms of the trust and making sure that people have always got access to it, and hoping to help them, you know, continuously, them and their future generations. Of course you're going to have some resistance against that, of course you are, because it's going against the whole social infrastructure and the debt and what that creates in terms of people's noses to the millstone, and they can't think, which means that people can be doing whatever they want to do and nobody's going to pay attention because they're too busy, you know, working a second job to pay their electricity bill, you know. So if you start to remove some of these things from the overall consideration for anybody, like in terms of a homeowner, and they can lift their head up and start looking at what's going on, yeah, of course, that's potentially an issue. And there is a risk associated with what I'm doing that I am aware of, you know, that is a risk. We're all going to die one day. We might as well die doing what we love. You know, so
Die with dignity.
You gotta, if you know, what do you stand for if you don't stand for something? You know. So I've nearly died many times over the last couple of years. You know, I had heart surgery. You know, I had my teeth done, and then they gave me too much adrenaline, and I nearly died on the plane when I was coming back from Turkey. You know, so these things, you know, these happen, and of course, you know, in the blink of an eye, we can be gone. But it's not what are we leaving? You know, not what we're taking.
Your hyperactiveness or your ADHD in your childhood affected you negatively quite a lot.
Yeah.
Now it seems to have focused you a bit more.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I
Is that
think
because of structure?
I've been kicked that many times, you know, during this particular process. You know, I don't think there's much that I've gone through in order for us to get here that there's left from within the real estate industry, whether it's the taking of the idea from institutions. And, you know, I don't want to name them, but I can show, you know, you in terms of evidences of this, how it happened, and leading figures in the industry. And, you know, back in 2014, I was one of the first. Modular wasn't really a thing then. There's only a few companies who had the approval, and the approval that I got was for panelized, for modular, and for volumetric. There was only, I think, 3 or 4 of us at that particular time. So that in itself carries a degree of interest for a number of people. The energy that I have, alhamdulillah, trying to achieve the aims and the objectives that we've got, especially post-launch of my first house, because ultimately that was my objective. I procrastinated about it for 2 years before I launched it. And it's something that I wanted to do. Oh, it's not right, I'm not ready, I've not built the houses. There was so many questions that went through my head. And then I read something from Stephen Bartlett. You know, there's another guy as well, he's called Andrew Gazdecki, who's got a company called acquire.com on LinkedIn. You should check him out. You know, he talks a lot of sense, and he's had multiple exits and otherwise. And, you know, I'm not stealing the Night logo, we're just like, just launch it. You'll find out soon enough, you know, in terms of what's the demand and otherwise. It's not going to be perfect, but nothing ever is. You will grow with it, you'll learn from it, you'll get feedback, you'll understand what you need to do, what, where, and how. And the people, the clients who you're actually trying to help, they will tell you. So, yeah, a lot less procrastination and a lot more action is, you know, not only just in my mind, but practically.
There's something you've learned through experience.
Yes, it comes with time. It's like anything, doesn't it? It comes with time. And the other thing is that also drives that is, you know, financial as well, you know, because I've put everything that I have into it, even up until like August last year, you know, but I had to sleep in a car for one night. You know, you've got it. I lost my family home when I got the factory and otherwise. You know, I've been through the mill Manchester when I delivered to Manchester City Council, you know, leading me to believe that I'm in prime position to deliver 2,500 homes. I set up a factory, 50,000 square foot facility, delivered the show home. Oh, sorry, management change. You know, we're not borrowing money from the bank. Built a show home. You know, it's like £500,000. That's a lot of money for people who don't borrow in, who are in a startup position. They tried to do it, they weren't able to do it. So we've had some big wins as well that nobody can take away from us, like the certification and the homes to Manchester City Council and otherwise. But yeah, of course, with experience, of course, a lot of experience over the last 20 years, but more so during the modular process, of course.
What's one bit of experience you'd want to share in terms of advice?
It's easy to build a house. That is my kind of, you know, it's easy. Don't let anybody tell you or scare you into thinking that it's so complicated and it's not expensive. Well, anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And anybody who wants to do it, get in touch with me and I'll show you how to do it.
We'll put your LinkedIn in the description.
No problem. You know, I'm here to help. You know, ultimately my objective is, how do you help people? You've got to be willing to share your knowledge. Because I'm saying it's an amana, it's a gift from me. Am I willing to share it? 100% I am. In terms of the knowledge and the know-how and the capability, I'll provide the product. You can go out and you can buy the product from somewhere else. It's not as widely as approved as my system because I did all of that first, but there are systems available out there that's light gauge steel and otherwise. And you're more than welcome to go and use my system and my solution and my process to help yourself. If you do that, ultimately you've helped me to achieve my objective, which is for you to have your own home at a price at what you can afford to pay. It doesn't necessarily have to come through me.
And where can people find you?
Although they can find me on LinkedIn, or they can go on the website and they can, click contact and, no problem. Get in touch with you, you know where I am.
Or you're either here
Yeah.
or Manchester.
So, I'm available for the right people. Somebody will always try and take advantage. That's the nature of human. That's what I've learned anyway, But if we restrict our knowledge and our know-how and capability, always protecting what we feel is so worthy of protecting, then how will people know?
Yeah.
I cannot personally help everybody by protecting what I've got. I have to be willing to share, and I'm willing to share.
Just before we finish, we'll have a quick fire session. Favorite food?
This is an ADHD person's dream, this. It's like, surround me with questions.
Favorite food? Favorite food?
Lebanese.
Shawarma.
No, I like batata hara.
Yeah, that's nice actually.
Thanks, Mum. Eating potatoes.
Favorite holiday destination?
Subhanallah, Medina.
Favorite book?
Subhanallah. I need to read Quran more, but I would be, lying to myself. It's not something, it's definitely something more that I need to do. I don't really read, I don't have the attention span. Apart from this, it's Macbeth and I'm at school.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Subhanallah, what a phenomenal question that is. If I had a superpower, what would it be? You need to stop doing it. Just making sure everybody had a roof over their head.
And favorite day of the week?
Friday.
I'm supposed to say Monday, but
It's Friday today.
Saadat, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Jazakallah khair. It's an absolute. I'm so grateful, to you for giving me the opportunity and for extending me this time and sincerely, allowing me to share some of my journey. I'm so grateful to you. I wish you exceptional success, and anybody else who feels like they have got something to contribute, to absolutely get in touch with you.
I appreciate that.
Jazakallah khair.